Hello, this is National Chess Master R. Rats back at chess.com, here to continue my video series on the correspondence team match between my video lessons group and CARPE DIEM. This was played down on board 195. We had a rating advantage, high 1500s versus low 1400s. Our teammate is Saful13, and let's have a look at his two games. Okay. Passive approach by White, but solid. Kind of played like a Queen's Gambit, accepted with colors reversed. The game should be essentially even. And covers e5. This was under attack. And I think the game is relatively even, but White's misplayed this, and Black has a good continuation. I'll show you. Here comes e4. This is a great move. And now it's just funny. The video I just made had White one of our guys missing a stock sacrifice. Bishop takes h7 check, wins a pawn because White cannot accept it. He has to tuck his king over to f1. Taking it is suicide. Knight check. Now king coming out allows a queen check, and it's out. It's over. King back to g1. Queen h4, and the threat is, they're all over the place. Okay, so queen d2 to guard f2. Now comes check, king over, and now this move of all things. And look what it's doing. It was doing this earlier. I just played knight e5, and it backed up 2 moves. Please get version 3 out. Please. Okay. Now Black's threat is to play check and bishop check, and let's just burn a move for White, and I'll show you. Okay, check, check, and check, and this isn't looking too good for White. I'm sure all of us would love to have this position. Let's see how you're going to finish this off. And always take with the pawn. Now if White trades queens, look at that monster pawn. Check. And king has to come here. Check. No, I'm sorry. Can't do that. I'm thinking Black's got to be winning this. Maybe I've missed something. But you have time in a correspondence game to sit and analyze these things, and it would have done Black well to have stopped and looked. Instead, he played queen d6 with a more direct threat, and threatening to take it with the queen. But White has time to defend that, and he opts to do it this way with g3. Is there any other way to do it? Well, you can't bring the queen out. h5 is covered by the knight. f4 possibility, but then you run into en passant, and you're going to get a bad pawn, but that might have been better. Because g3 just creates all these light squared weaknesses. And Black does miss a quicker wins here, but he does it well. He does conduct the attack fairly well. Bishop g4. And the light square defenders are going to disappear. And now this next move is good. Bring the knight into play. And here, inexplicably, White takes away a defender. He needs to cover f3. This is not good. And bishop takes. Now I think at this point, let's see, can White get away with this? Okay, now for the moment. No, he can't get away with this. For the moment, White's a piece down, and he's going to remain a piece down. Or is he? Let's see. Yeah, he is. Knight b5. Well, he's going to maybe get something. No, he's just not going to get anything here. Black wins. Okay. So Black calculated this correctly. That he could play bishop takes e2. Oops, don't want to do that. Let's get the correct move played. But no defenders of f3, and this should be a routine win now for Black. Let's see what happens. Queen d6, planning to penetrate into the heart of the matter, meaning the black king, the white king position. And white needs some defenders over there. He's got to bring this knight back, or put the queen over here. Anything. A4 just doesn't make sense. It protects the knight. Well, you couldn't play. Yeah, I guess it does make sense if he's protecting the knight. Queen F1 would have at least lost the queen takes. But you got to get this knight back into play. It was misfired over here anyway. And white misses a strong move here. I think black is, or black misses a strong move. I think white's defenseless against this move. Okay, for instance, it stops queen F1 cold because knight check and mate to your choice of mates. Do you want to win the queen or mate on H2? Either one is a checkmate. So queen F1 is stopped. How does white defend this position? This is the threat. You have to bring a knight back, like I've been saying all along. But now you can still do this check, and he has to take. Now the threat is a mate here, and you can't save the rook. So a quick win for black if he does that. Anyway, let's see. Okay. So anyway, let's back it up. But it's easy to see that although queen h3 would win quicker, this move certainly isn't bad. I mean, that knight's entrenched. And now bishop e5 doesn't want the queen to be displaced. The queen wants to be able to point towards the king side. And now here I don't think black needed to play that. Let's not drive the knight back where it's helping out. Let him come back on his own. This gets white a defender, but it's not enough. And now knight g5 is deadly. Queen h3 check is coming. And here it is. And now more pressure on h2. And white's basically busted here. There's really no defense. And the whole game falls apart quickly. He gives up a piece, but it's to no avail. And black has too much control over h2, and white's pawn shield is vanishing. And now he gives up the queen with check. Ouch. And now comes this move, and that allows a mate in one. There it is. So there wasn't much to this in the end. It was a pretty quick, decisive victory by black. What did white do wrong? Well, the point white missed bishop. Okay, here's where black could have played bishop takes h7, h2 check. So what did white do wrong? Let's back it up ever so slightly. Rook e1 appears to be the culprit. I'm against moving these rook pawns up, but since, as we'll see in the next game, this is something YS Kanwar likes to do, it certainly would have saved him a lot of grief, I think. Although, with these two bishops pointed at the king, there may very well have been a sacrifice coming on this square. Maybe you have to play... No, you can't play e5. It just gives up a pawn. If you had a knight back here, you might be able to get away with it. But he doesn't. Let's see. Could always stop and take this guy. That's one less knight to mess around, but does give up a light square protector. E5 is coming, followed by this check. White's in trouble here, I think. I can't really trade off the bishop, so he's probably going to have to stop and play h3. This knight got a little misplaced. What black does in a queen's gambit accepted is push for a c4 of him, in descriptive notation, pawn to queen, bishop 4. And move this pawn up. This knight is blocking this pawn, so this knight got a little misplaced over on b3. And white should have been playing for a move like c4 at some point, treating it like excuse me, treating it like a queen's gambit accepted with colors reversed. Okay, let's move on to the next game and see what happens here. Let's flip the board. And here we have the Philidor's defense coming up. And once again, I've seen this so many times in this match. and I'm going to be critical as much as I can to drill this. I don't want to see play. I really want to see this eliminated. What I'm talking about is moving these rook pawns. Okay, this is these moves are absolutely terrible. And I'll say it again in case you don't watching all the videos. Okay, what's wrong with these moves? Number one, you don't develop a piece. Number two, the reason these players do it, they don't like knights getting pinned, and they don't like knights coming to this square and maybe giving forks. But unless you're an absolute beginner, you're not going to run into trouble if you allow that with your opponent. You can allow the pin and you're fine. You can allow the knight to go there and you can stop the threat. These moves weaken your pawn structure. This weakens b6. You wouldn't think it's much, but it is. Okay, now here comes the other one, h6. Kaboom! Okay, black has no pieces developed, and white's got two, and it's his move. Now here I think white misfires, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But I just want to get the last word in on these rook pawn moves. The strategy I see this down at the 1,000, 1,200 level a lot in standard games with my students. Their opponents are pushing these rook pawns up, and what I tell them over and over again, what you have to do is break the position open, because you're going to get a lead in development, and those weaknesses are going to become exposed. And because of your lead in development, if you break the position open, you'll get an attack. And some of my students, what they were doing is they were not breaking with d4. They were stopping and playing d3. Well, d4 has already happened, but then they would have a lead in development, but they couldn't do anything with their pieces, and then the opponent would catch up in development, and it turned out these rook pawn moves were strengths. They were taking squares away that my students couldn't improve their position, and eventually they would find themselves being outplayed. And it's kind of unfortunate that someone can move these rook pawns up and get away with it. But here what white needs to play is bishop c4, and white has a fine game. And we'll talk about that when we see why he misfired with bishop d3. See, bishop f4 or c4 hits the vulnerable f7 square. Now white's not going to do a scholar's mate, but white's going to have some quick pressure here. And when we're done, we'll come back. We'll look at what could happen if he plays bishop c4. Okay, so now few developing moves. And now here white misfires again, king h1. There's no need for this move. This gives a tempo back to black. Okay, one of those rook pawn moves, you've just returned the favor. There's going to be no pin of this knight on this file. You haven't even advanced your f-pawn yet. Okay? You basically gave black a free move. And black utilize it with a knight here. Now here we can see why the bishop would have been better on c4. Then it can drop back to b3, and it's maintaining the pressure on f7. But white decides to keep it and puts it back on e2. Now black is actually getting away with his bad strategy. But black's going to throw this game away in just a move or two. And you'll see why and how. Okay, now white takes a knight. And inexplicably, for whatever reason, black does not play queen takes knight. He moves his bishop. Now he's down a piece with no compensation. And the rest of the game, I'm going to run through it kind of quick because there's really not much to this game. It's just a matter of white making trades, and he's got a big enough lead in development that this game is going to be over soon. And white's just got an extra knight. Nothing black can do about it. White's happily making trades, and now white's a rook up. Was a piece up. Now, as a result of these trades, he ends up being a rook up. And black really has no hope. And white just takes his time. He's in no hurry. And here I think white should think about getting doubled up on the 7th rank, but he doesn't. Now here's the point. Rook e1, e7 is deadly. But he doesn't do it. And he just bides his time. And actually what's going to happen is black is going to construct his own mating net here. Black, here it goes. Now black walks right into mate. So white strategy worked fine. Boom, checkmate. Okay, let's go back to this position and see what could happen if white played bishop c4. Now, secret, when you want to analyze a chess game, I've talked about this in a lot of videos, what do? You analyze developing moves, because those are the moves that are going to give you the most chance and give your opponent the best chance to hold against your threats. So we can't cover every move when we analyze unless you devote 3 hours to a move. You can look at all kinds of things, but here, just for the sake of a few minutes, let's see what white might accomplish with bishop c4. Okay, the first thing black needs to do is get developed. If he doesn't develop, he's in trouble. So we got to get that king needs to get castled. It's going to take 3 moves to do it. Let's start with this. Okay. Now let's get him closer, and white gets another piece developed. And now, good, we got black castled. Now, how much of an advantage does white have? Well, let's take a look. White has 4 minor pieces developed. Black has 2, and it's white's move. So white's 2.5 tempos ahead. In other words, it would take black 3 moves just to catch up. Move the bishop to, say, g4, the knight to c6, the queen to d7. But it's white's move. So let's continue developing. Let's go ahead and put this queen on f3. Let's have some fun here. Okay? Now what do I mean by fun? Well, we're going to see here in a second. Black needs to develop. So let's develop something. Let's go attack a knight, okay? Now we're threatening maybe putting the knight here. Putting the knight here. So let's just go ahead and get rid of that so it's not in our way, okay? Now he's got double pawns to deal with. Now we're going to make a threat. We can play, well, no, we don't want to play that. Knight h5. We're going to go on the d file. Now our threat is to play e5. Okay? Black needs some development. Let's try to shut this diagonal down. Okay? I'll go ahead and take it. Now black's getting what he wants. He's getting some pieces off, but he might be running into some trouble here. His pawn structure is going to suffer here. Or is it? Let's see. Knight here. Now, what do we want to do next? Well, we can take a pawn. No, that drops the bishop. I'm just basically analyzing. We can take this pawn, a tempo of bishop, and now let's go attack a pawn with check, just because we can. All right, e5. Well, I'm going to give a check because I can. And let's see, where do we want this? Now, what's happened here? And I'm just kind of analyzing. Maybe white has better. That's how you analyze. Maybe we could have found something better for white. Here I'm driving white back a little bit. But at the same time, black what do we accomplish? Black has 3 pawn islands. White has 2. Black's getting pawns on the color of his bishop. His bishop doesn't have much scope. We can play this move. Well, that might allow d5. We're trying to invoke c5. But you see, there's no guarantee black is going to play this accurately. If black is stopping to move rook pawn moves, we don't know if black's going to get developed or not. So your chances of a decisive attack are pretty quick. Now, I didn't have to play queen e3. I can play queen d2. That keeps the protection of the knight, and it gets my queen off the back rank. Now let's do this. Now let's swing a rook over. Here's another idea. Now, one thing I mentioned earlier, how this move weakens g6. Notice that white can drop a piece on that square, and black can't touch it because of the pin. See? White may have some sacrifices on this square. I've seen games, some of my students, they played an early h6 when they didn't have to, and then some 20 moves later, it provided a sacrifice that cost them the game. So, you guys don't need to make these rook pawn moves. It's against a strong player, you're going to get annihilated as a result of running those rook pawns up. They have no business going there. Okay, and I don't know where this thing came from, because how this trend happened in so many games. I've been playing chess when I was playing with kids as a youth, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade in chess clubs. My opponents never moved their rook pawns up to keep stuff out. I don't know how this started. I don't think it's any book of defense. It's just something people aren't getting exposed to chess the right way. The beginners always go for the scholar's mate. You go to a scholastic tournament, watch the kindergartners. The bright ones are gonna win in 4 moves with the scholar's mate, but at some point it gets ingrained in. You gotta find a better way to defend against that. But some people have created the idea to stop it is to move their rook pawns, and it's just not good. Okay. Anyway, end of rant. Thanks so much for watching this video, and got a lot more to make for this team match, but I will catch up.